Good morning, church. We are in 2 Samuel chapter 24 today. This is the last chapter in the book of 2 Samuel. And I want to start today with verse 25. Here's what it says. David built an altar to the Lord there and sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. Then the Lord answered his prayer in behalf of the land, and the plague on Israel was stopped. Do you remember us talking about Joab, David's commander-in-chief of the army, earlier this week? Remember, he was David's loyal right-hand man, right? But then there are other passages where we see that Joab is divisive, he's self-serving, and he's disloyal. He put himself above others, even killing relatives to strengthen his leadership. So his divisiveness and his disloyalty becomes more apparent in the book of 1 Kings, which we're not going to get into today, but in the book of 1 Kings, David tells his son Solomon, when you get on the throne, you need to deal with Joab. And so what Solomon did was he put an end to Joab's aggression by putting him to death. In contrast to Joab's unruliness and his divisiveness and his disloyalty and his disobedience. As you read through chapter 24 of 2 Samuel today, notice, like in verse 17, and then verse 14, and then verses 17 through 25, how David responded, in contrast, how David responded after he sinned against God. What David did was that he profoundly humbled himself when God corrected him. And then he immediately obeyed the moment he received God's instructions and commands to build an altar there. And so this is the moment when David purchased the threshing floor from Auranah, and he built an altar in the place that later King Solomon would build the temple to God. And so, in light of that, when thinking back over the course of all of the stories that you've heard this summer about David and the things that he did wrong, and then he would humble himself and repent and choose obedience over and over again, versus all of the rebellious people that were inside his kingdom, outside his kingdom, people who were under his authority, who didn't honor and obey him and didn't honor and obey God. In comparison to all of those, David continued to turn back. He continued to stay on his knees and repent when God pointed things out to him. And so, in the same way, when we make mistakes, because we all do, ask yourself this question: do I tend to repent and return toward God to receive his forgiveness and protection? Or when he points something out to me, do I tend to run away from him in fear of retribution? And so just ponder that today and ask him, Lord, is there anything that I need to turn away from today? And don't be afraid to run toward him, because he is our kind Father and he loves us and he loves you. And then the second question is, when you think back on the people who were second in command, people like Amasa, who delayed obedience, which is the same as disobedience, or like Joab, who stayed and served David, but sometimes he was doing it for self-important reasons. Ask yourself this question: who am I second in command to? And how can I demonstrate humility, honor, and loyalty to them today? So that's what I'm going to leave you with for this week. I thank you for hanging in there with us through the entire season of 9 weeks through 1st and 2nd Samuel. It has been a joyride for me. It's been really fun, and I hope it has been that for you as well.